Hey everyone, it's Warriors NRL Fanatics. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. And yeah, it's been a while since I've last done a live YouTube show, and I'm joined by Levon from WAHS Up TV. It's good to have you on again. It's been a while since we've actually done a show together. But yeah, you've been very busy, of course. Things are going on, and of course with the channel as well, your channel as well. So good to have you on again. Let's talk about the 2024 season. It's a shame we're not actually talking about, a finals run coming up, but it's good to have you on.
Yeah, thank you, Fanatics, man. Thank you
Oh,
for having me. And it's been a little while, but it's great to be on here. As always, your channel is always a place where all the regulars I see in the chat, the Jazzes, the
Jazz.
interwebbies. Shout out to all the boys in the chat. But man, it's a pleasure to be on here when I can. It's been a year, like you said, a tough year. Not
Yeah.
we probably as content creators haven't always wanted to reach out to each other, in
Mm,
terms of because things aren't going too well. But it's great, man. It's great to connect. As always, content isn't just about yourself. Although
yeah.
you might do your stuff on your own sometimes, it's about sharing the love and passion of rugby league and specifically the Warriors. So, no, thank you for having me, man. And guys, as always, like and subscribe to Warriors NRL FedEx, man. Just like over at Wise Up TV, subscribe and like. Doing good work here, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I appreciate you coming on, of course. And I just want to pop into the chat before we get into it. Say hello to everyone who's here. So we've got Jazz here. Good to see you, Jazz. One of the OGs there, always in the chat. Always a regular viewer. Interwebby. And got Jacko here, of course, and Greg as well. And hello to Hosea as well. Good to see
Is
you in
that
the
yep.
chat, bro. Hope you're doing well. He's another regular viewer of the channel as well. So yeah, it's good to see everyone here. Obviously it's we're going to talk about what has been the 2024 season, probably for me, of woes, and so that's what I've called it. What woes, was woes this season, which is why I've made that as the title. But it's a shame I make that as the title because last year obviously we know what happened last season. Of course, that's now in the past. What's your thoughts, Helmet, on the season as a whole, just how it's planned out? Because as a fan and a content creator, sitting here and trying to digest how the season's gone for the boys, it's been a year where we didn't expect. I had us, I had us challenging for the top four at least be in the finals.
Yeah.
But that hasn't quite transpired for me. So yeah, what are your thoughts on how the season's panned out? There's been so many things you can put a picture on, you can put a cross on. What is it that you think has been the issue this season? For you?
Yeah. It's like you got to go back to 2023, and
Yep.
you got to say that was a seminal Warriors season. It seems as though it's like one every 10 or 12 years, and we had one. We had a great season, made a preliminary final, and that whole season was just amazing to watch. The style of play, the commitment, the attitude. You add in that
Mm,
the social media, the team itself, everyone bought into Webby, who was a revelation for us. And although we lost to the Broncos, everyone felt that it was going to be a massive year. And specifically, if you look at especially over November period when we heard about AFB wanting to leave, and then that kind of set us up in 2024, knowing that we would only have AFB for one more year.
yeah.
So that kind of put a wrinkle on everything we had. But then we brought an RTS and CHT, and I think maybe some of us felt that SJ had one more year, and it's eventually come out that I thought he might have gone 2025, but it ended up being 20. This was it, his last year. But we still felt that core players before AFB finished up and SJ, and adding an RTS that we could get as close, maybe close to the final or win the final
Yeah.
with that current squad. And then that just hasn't happened. So that leads us into 2024, and you come from such a high, and now to where we are at such a low. You just have to look at it and try and reflect and understand it. I'll probably just, as we go along the show, I'll mention more things, but you have to
Yeah.
say injuries were a big part of it. They,
Mhm.
the squad itself wasn't able to, um, manage the changes almost weekly, multiple positions, and so those things had their impact. Players, I think, individually dropping off. Um,
Mhm.
for example, yeah, just individuals um, not really living up to what happened the previous year. SJ dropped off.
Yep.
Metcalf injury. So that initial halves pairing had no real time together to ice things out. And then you look at Catewell did not impact enough to start the season. Um,
Yeah.
Arthur was injured for 12 weeks. Dylan Walker was out at different times. So it was like the team was very dependent on, um, a lot of the key players. And I suppose with them being injured, Webby found it hard too to bring the younger guys in. If you think about Jacob Laban's, the Zion Mau's only got one game this year. Laban maybe got four. We've only
Yep.
seen Halima and Dimitri get an opportunity towards the back end of the season. Paulie Roach only had one game. Leah Towers had maybe one or two games, barring injury. So it was really mix and match. And where I think Webby would probably say he would have loved to just ride the 2023 squad in 2024 and then bring the young guys in 2025. And I felt that he kind of he struggled to kind of trust in those guys, and maybe their development isn't really there yet. So there's a lot of those underlying issues. I'll get to more of them, bro. But that's kind of
Yeah.
just some of the things that to start off with. Yeah,
Yeah, and I'll get to the comments real soon. I'll just the way I probably sum it up this year's obviously last year we all thought that going into the season that 2024 was we're gonna go one better, obviously making the great grand final qualifier last year. And I think we're on the highs of last year, where people didn't expect us to do so well, and Webby came in his first year and he got the team to where it was. And Webby's Webby, not many people were too sure what Webby was going to do. Being a coach that hasn't had a lot of NRL experience, where that was his first year coaching the NRL, and he got us to that top four. And going into this year, of course, me as fan and a lot of fans alike, thought that this year was going to be the year that we could challenge. And I know the Warriors recruitment and the CEO and that they were focusing on this year as a big one. They were putting a lot of focus on this year, of course, with the recruitment, with RTS coming, and of
yeah,
course with Kate Well. Um, so yeah, look, I think obviously this year the biggest issues have been a lack of. I feel like it's a lack of connection, probably a bit of a mindset sort of change there attitude wise.
yep,
I think maybe that last year they thought that going into this year could be the exact same as what they did last season. And that's why I feel that's probably been the case of a lot of our games this year. And there's been some games where we've come up real short. A lot of close games we've come quite up short. And I don't know what are your thoughts here on that? Because I feel like a lot of our games. There's been games where ultimately we've had close games where we've lost, and then
yep.
of course the Titans game was the one that really let me down. It was real letdown because it wasn't a game that a lot of people expected. Going to the Gold Coast and taking on the Titans team with a lot of Warriors support down there. But what do you put it down to? Do you put it down to some of those games? How do you put it down to the close games? Like, what are your thoughts
Well,
on that?
I'll give you an example, right, of kind of
Yeah,
when things were probably looking not too good, right? If you look
yeah,
and remember back at the start of the season when we played the Sharks and even the
mm,
Storm game, I think.
yep,
Remember, typically we run that double lead play. So we'll go left and then we'll go and set a shape, a double block play with on that right side, whether it's Catewell at the time or whoever, Marata and Berry. And then we'll key off of that and that will open up the outside for C and K and that was working a treat last year. We all know that play. I mean, even in my videos, I was, had that replay in my analysis. It was so effective. And then you almost saw teams straight away coming into 2024 season. They'd figured out
Mm.
how to stop that play, and then every time we tried to do it, it didn't. It didn't. We didn't either nail it really well, or teams were keyed onto it and figured out how to stop it. Which shows you that we either, yeah, like you said, settled, got complacent, thinking that
Mm.
that would work again without taking into account that other teams would improve, um, or we either didn't execute it to the level we did 2023. I think it's a bit of both, but I'd probably say sway more to teams
Yeah.
studying us and knowing our cues and and how to stop us, and that perpetuated to a point that I think we all got pretty much close to, I think, the Newcastle game or even the Roosters game, and we were all saying, "Oh, this is so predictable. Webby needs to change
Yeah.
it up." It was too obvious. The tactics were too obvious, and teams were able to stop a lot of what we were trying to do. So that's one thing that goes back to your comment of complacency, or not being take evolving to the next level to prepare
Mm.
for us an NRL 2024 that had Hasler coming in, it had Flanagan coming in, Serraldo was going to get better, all these other teams
Yeah.
were going to improve. So you think you're good for 1 year and you can do the same thing. That's not the case in the NRL. That's always ever evolving, and so that's kind of one sign. Okay, we kind of behind the eight ball to start off, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, Pen, I'm just going to go through some of the comments. So if you guys got any, just a reminder, if you guys got any questions or comments you want to ask us, or feel free to put them into the chat, and yeah, we'll definitely answer them as well. But yeah, so just got a comment here from Jacko. So injuries to Metcalf and Sean Johnson put a huge dent in the season. Then more injuries, but there does appear to be more things wrong behind the public face of the club. So what do you reckon there on that comment by Jacko there? He's pointed out.
Yeah, Jacko's right in many ways.
Yep.
But at the same time, I think SJ, his performance dropped off. I mean, you look,
Mm,
he had 5, 6 weeks off, and then he came back into the Eels game, and even last week against Manly, and hasn't performed. So it's not just injuries on SJ's part; his form actually dipped as well. And Metcalf's injury for such a long period of time, no doubt, had an impact on that halves pairing. Um, and probably towards his comment about behind the public face of the club. Yeah, I mean, Webby, if you looked at a lot of his press conferences, right,
yeah.
um, and you really studied what he was trying to say, you could tell at times he was looking for answers. And if you looked at a lot of the changes he made, he was always trying to find something. For example, RTS, right? They had him at left center. And then before you knew it, he was moved out to different spots. Now, sometimes for injury, but at the same time, I think the
Mm,
one where he was going to go to left wing, but then he got his hamstring injury, and they were going to drop Montoya. Remember, Montoya went to Cup.
yeah. Yeah.
Eh, Like for me, he was kind of trying to find solutions, um, because I maybe feel like he didn't know what the answers were. He might have been a bit shocked, and like Jacko might be saying, there might have been something happening behind the scenes that just hasn't felt like a settled season. You know what I mean? The vibe, probably the attitude, the working environment might be different. And I think he's been trying to keep either things under control, um, while at the same time trying to find answers. And unfortunately, sometimes it's just come up wrong for Webby. The more changes he's made, it's almost the worse it's gone. You try to bring Pompey on in the St George lineup off the bench, and that failed. And there was just certain things that he tried that probably bombed in his face as he was trying to find answers, and just unfortunate he couldn't really get them this year. So if it's the AFB situation, I'm no doubt having to put him on the sidelines for a week. there's probably some things going on in the background that like he might be better off next year with JFH, and that and might have more control of the boys of the culture. But we'll see what comes of next year. Um, in my opinion, yeah.
Yeah, and just a question here from Maz, uh, saying here, do you think there's something internal that's happened causing the momentum to drop? What do you reckon there? Because uh,
Yeah, yep. I feel so.
yeah,
I mean, you know, there was talks. These are rumors. I'm not sure if they're legit things, but rumors that everyone was disappointed that SJ was, just rocking up on the games. That's one thing. AFB, the constant disappointment on the field, his body
mm,
language playing an impact on guys not performing to his level, should we say? Um, the RTS situation, I have no doubt would have played a part on guys like CNK or Tuopiki or some of the centers like maybe MGT or Leatoa who thought they might have had a shot this year. So there might be little under rumblings of talk and mistrust. Um, you probably got to read the body language of the boys and
yeah,
when they won the game against the Tigers and they sung the team song, they didn't give off a
mm,
vibe of like they were really happy. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so there's some truth to that, I think. What it is, we probably never know unless they did a tell all, with Webby and he might share that. But that's just my thoughts anyway. Yeah.
yeah. And Jacko's also asking a question here. Do you think that Webster's is too reluctant on bringing younger players? I think it is. I think he is. Yeah. I think this year, he has been pretty loyal to some of the the more older state players. Of course, because they've been around for so long, and he just feels loyal to pick them each week. I don't know how you feel on this one. But yeah, I just reckon that because there were times where I was watching some of the cup players play, and they've been playing great, but they're not getting into the first grade side, and that's I don't know. It just feels like Webby is reluctant to pick some of those players, or
Yep.
that's what I feel. You might feel differently, but that's how I feel. Because I
Yep.
like to see some more of the younger players get an opportunity, and I know it's it's a totally different game. I understand that, but with the season now, completely done. Forward to the future and next year and the coming years. So yeah, I don't know. What do you reckon on that question?
Yeah, it's a genuine question.
Yeah.
I'll probably side with Jacko there, but Michael was actually saying as well should have been rotating Laban for Harris earlier in the season. There's a lot of
Mm,
things Webby could have done, right?
yeah.
Um, I'll just quickly go back before going. The biggest one probably was he could have rested SJ from the start of the season. People were saying he had this injury in preseason, right?
Mm,
The fact that they
yeah.
pushed him or he pushed himself or whatever it was, they could have made a decision say, no, we want you to rest up. We'll roll with Tamaide and Metcalf to start the season. Then we'll bring you in halfway when you're fully ready to go. Like that could
Mm,
have been better for the overall season if they had made some sacrifices like that. Similarly to the young boys, I think the plan around how they were going to use them could have been better. Maybe like Laban came in, he did a few games, and then he dropped back out. But I mean that was due to injuries as well. They were never these boys were never going to be in that starting pack, should we say? Um, but what I'll give Webby one thing is that, pardon me, the fact that
yeah.
you've seen Halasima and Dimitri, at
Yeah.
least in these last few games, I think he will definitely be going to them in next season. Like I go to our first point, I think he wanted to try and ride out the 2023 squad into 2024. Injuries were probably hampered that. He probably didn't want to
Mm,
go with the young guys. Um, but I will mention that some of the young guys' games now they're not going to be perfect every week, and that's the thing when you do
yeah.
play young guys.
That's
Like, and if your season's on the line, you probably don't want to play them because they will have errors, they will have drop offs. tackling will they need time to develop. So you almost want to develop them from the very start over a season instead of putting them in a big game and they got to kind of these are must win games. But I will say that the best center run we had this year was from Leka Halasima, and he's not even a center. So the talent is there. It just needs to be put on display. But maybe their plan as a club was to unleash them next year. But you do have to say, and I agree with Jacko a little bit that he was tentative to bring the young guys up. Like for me, one guy that I thought was really good was Leatoa, and he could have been playing either from the start of the season or earlier on. I thought Roach was really good, and even though he had an injury,
Mm,
um, and it's kind of weird. It's unfortunate that this is the farewell for SJ, and I love SJ. I mean, not taking away from him, but these last 4 games when the season was over probably could have been given to the younger guys to prepare for
yep.
next year. But now that it's a farewell tour for SJ, we won't get those opportunities for those guys. But it is what it is at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just going through some of your comments. So, guys, if you got any questions or comments, feel free to put them in, and I'll get to them. So, Maz is saying here, I reckon Sean Johnson should have gone a cut before coming back, just like we just saying here. And Jacko's also going. Panthers go to the market as well, though they have picked up Papali and a really young gun from the Eels. And Jose is just saying, yeah, a big lesson learned from the season was not to play players carrying big injuries. Regards to Sean and his Achilles, and our depth was big enough to rest our starters. Which I think at the start of the year, I did a preview with Ash and a couple of other content creators. We talked about squad depth, and we're pretty high on the squad depth going into the season. I'm sure you talked about squad depth on your channel as well, but going into this year, I wasn't too worried about our squad depth. But what do you make out of it this year? Because I think our squad depth has been tested. It's probably not quite passed with flying colours. So yeah, what do you reckon? What do you reckon on that?
Yeah, I think squad depth has had its flaws, definitely.
Yeah.
I'll go back to just the recruits like Catewell, RTS,
Yes.
CHT. On in hindsight, I think they all kind of failed in a way, probably barring
Mm,
CHT. I thought so. You've brought in 2 guys that haven't, in RTS and Catewell, in my opinion, haven't fully added to the team this season. At least, maybe next year might be a different story. So that's 2 spots where I suppose you didn't get the best out of it. Um, the younger guys, the cup guys, again, like I said, they're always going to be great, and they'll always have moments where they'll fall off. So,
yep.
but probably not enough time for them under duress to have a real good shot. Um, I mean, the guy likes of Jazz and that did well, but Bunty, you saw him in the starting rotation to
Yeah.
start the year off, and then he got dropped out. So things kind of changed behind the scenes a lot. That even for me, Bunty, I know he's not a great numbers guy, but I thought he did a decent enough job to. Um, Obviously, last year he was a starting prop and he did 20 minutes, and then that allowed Barnett to be a bit fresher. I think he could have even used Bunty a bit more, but went away from that. You know what I mean? So there's definitely areas that depth, like people arguing over Kossi, if is he NRL standard. That's another big argument. You could say the wing
Mm,
position past Montoya and Dallin um, isn't strong. Like it is probably technically strong with Setu in it, but for whatever reason, Webby didn't want to go to those guys.
yep.
Um, so there's some big questions around the depth as well. So that's kind of where it's a mix and match. One of those seasons where it's just a whole bunch of different ideas and half baked ideas and things that you kind of didn't get to see the full plan out.
Mm.
Um, Maybe we'll see a bit more of that this year coming next season is like actual clear structure of who's in the spots, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to point out too that throughout this whole season we haven't had those consistent combinations, and that's been a problem. We've had a lot of injuries, and we've had changes. One week we've had different back line. We've had Roger in centres, we've had him on the wing, we've had
Yeah. Oh,
CNK at fullback. It's sort of been a bit of a problem for us throughout the season. I think this injuries and I don't
yes.
know what it's down to. Are the boys been trained too hard, or is it? I just want to. Yeah, what do you reckon there? Because that's the biggest thing. Biggest question mark is why we're getting all these so many injuries this season. It's just
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll
really
quickly go back to that point you made.
yeah.
We were the top of the NRL for most injuries. Like we accessed almost 30
Mm,
of our, I think we accessed the whole top 30 squad. Most teams might get up to 25, 26, 27. I think we went up to 30, might have even been 31. I'm not I'm not too sure. But like we were probably the most tested for depth in terms of injuries this year. So that is a fair statement. But I think in terms of the style of play, yeah, it is a physical, grinded out style.
yep,
Again, probably goes to the forwards. It's a physically demanding style that Webby plays, similar to Serraldo, where you got to have leg speed, all those types of things. But in terms of the injuries, yeah, you could probably maybe say the strength and conditioning could have been better. Let's say. Um, when there are a lot of injuries, it's either the your workload's too much. So training sessions are either um, too intense or too labored, um, or your strength and conditioning is a bit off. The other thing is that could just be a freak year where you just get a ton of injuries and there's nothing you can do about it. So
yep,
you might notice next year that they might do the same thing and they'll have less injuries.
mm,
So that's another way to look at it as well. But it's fair enough to question strength and conditioning. I
yep,
know Clough stuff's been big on that since the start.
yep,
Clough was always telling me and probably telling you as well that he was concerned about strength and conditioning coaches, and we should look at every department and ask the question and say, can this be improved? Um, if that's the area, and you just hope that they do that as part of their end of season review. Like look at every department and say, what did we get wrong? What was the reasoning for injuries? Was it a freak year of just heaps of injuries, or could we have actually done better in terms of our conditioning? Just something to think about.
yeah. And that's probably why I brought it up because I just thought, look, looking at throughout the season, and I know a lot of other teams have had the injury problems, and I'm not here to say it's an excuse at the end of the day because you still got a whole squad, and the whole squad, to get results on the field, and I'm just wondering, why is it the case, like with the injuries and that, and why we had so many this year? Because I think last year we were quite lucky, we didn't have too many, and that's why it helped us in the run last season. But yeah, Jazz is just saying here, just point at the comment here that Jazz is saying here, squad depth was decent. I don't want to make excuses, but I counted around 10 to 11 starters out on a couple of games, and so the depth was really tested. And yeah, spot on, Jazz. Absolutely spot on there
Yep.
with that comment. But also, Jackers is saying here that Situ 2 and Pasikala are the future. Very good first grade war wingers for sure. Yeah, what are your thoughts on some of the younger players if you're looking at some of the next couple of players to come through to the from the pathways? Who are you looking out for? Like it could maybe make a run next year or try and get a first grade opportunity.
Well, I think those two there are
Yeah,
definitely things. Look, I think Dallin and Montoya's time at the Warriors, in my opinion, is should be close to finishing up.
mm,
Um, you know, yeah, it's probably the next year's last year for me at latest. So I'll be looking to definitely bring up City Two or Pasikala as future wingers. Maybe you don't want to bring up one, two at a time in one season. I think that might be a bit too risky.
yeah,
If you can find a way to stagger one in one season and maybe the one in the other, that might be a good thing. But again, the secret for me is to get guys to 50 first grade games. Like,
yep,
um, that's the period that that's they're solid, reliable professionals. Um, but if they can get through a full season at 25 of them, um, 25 games, that would be great too. So, for me, I'll probably only bring one up if it's next year or but I'll be looking to change the wings, in the next year or so. My opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, and just a comment here from Michael. Michael Mendoza saying here, where we wanted instant results, I saw a chance of winning with SJ and AFB, but we just need to be regular top eight to keep and attract top players. So what are your thoughts here on that comment that Michael's just made?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if he wanted instant results. I thought he
Yeah,
might get similar results with SJ and AFB, and and it showed that the results weren't the same. So he had to start making changes. But um, yeah, I
yeah,
mean, even I think there's a lot of things happening. Again, we're trying to figure this out as a team, but also like the competition improved. You have to acknowledge that too. All the teams we beat last year, they were down the bottom. The Bulldogs, Dragons, the Titans, Eels beat us. Whoever else that was quite low, like barring the Tigers, maybe like we lost to these teams. So you gotta you gotta improve every year. You gotta be ahead of the game in those details as well. Like I said, the signings of Capewell and RTS. Upon reflection, I think everyone was like excited to see them, but at the same time, you reflect upon now, we could have got smarter signings. Like I just look at the Bulldogs and say, wow, they got Josh Curran, and how important has he been for their team? What could we have done in terms of an Aussie
yeah,
signing if it wasn't Capewell? Who could it have been? um, that could have maybe helped us a bit better, or RTS, could that have gone to Alea Toa straight at the start of the season to bring him in and get him 25 games into his NRL career right now? There's all these questions and things to think about, but it'll come back to the review. But these are questions that we should be asking, or the club should be asking themselves, if they really want to take seriously, being a top eight team again and being regular in the finals. Those are the things you got to really ask yourself. Yeah.
yeah. And Jazz is just saying here that Sammy and Jello pointed out how many combination changes we had in certain positions, and it was a lot. They said the Bulldogs had the least amount of changes and most consistency of the lineups. Yeah, and a big shout out to Sammy and Jello
Mm.
and the Running It Straight podcast, which they did some great work there. And yeah, I actually listened to their podcast a couple of days ago, and they did mention that Jazz actually. So what are your thoughts here on that what Sammy and Jello said on their podcast?
Yeah, combinations are really important. Like
Yeah.
you can't understate that. Um, you know, and if the Bulldogs have the least change, like you look at their back five, right? Like it's
Mm.
really solid. Like Sherry and Fox, like keeping those two together over a whole season has benefited them. Crichton and Carraz, no doubt, the same as well. So that's why I say the signing of RTS and moving him around so much. That's why I think Webby has kind of uh, painted himself into corners at times with some of the selections. That a guy like RTS has been moved around nearly every week, if we're being honest, and it's caused instability. And like I said, I'm worried for him coming up against Sherry and a Fox, who have had probably 20 rounds of playing together and understanding each other's cues. And then this is probably what RTS with Dallin second or third week, whereas he was with Kossi the other. It's a bit of a mess. Let's just call it what it is. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a thought.
Yeah, and just before I get into what I'm going to say next, Jackie's just saying here, end of season review must look at everything in the middle detail. If there are any staff members too cushy and secure in their jobs, they need a shake up. So yeah, I mean, look, you've got to look at it. You look at it from every angle. Will it be behind the scenes or will it be stuff on the field as well? Whatever it is to get the club back to where they want to be next year. So I do agree with you there on that one, Jacko. And Jose is just saying, yeah, just ask a question. What are some of the positives you can take from the season? Well, are there any like positives you can take? Because
Yep.
it's
You-
quite a tricky one to answer, Jose. But it's a good question. What do you reckon there?
I think the positive. will be the
Yep.
learning from failure.
Yeah.
Webby will learn from this. He has to, and so that's the positive. The old saying of Michael Jordan. I missed 36,000 shots to make one
Mm,
shot. Like you learn from your failures. Um, if you can learn from your failures, that does so much more for you. So I kind of see it as that. I see it as like, this is a great opportunity for the whole club, right from the top. Robbo, Cam George, all of that stuff. That you can learn from failure and mistakes, and you can go and correct them and be better next year. So yeah, as you could probably look at some of the positives. The young guns come through. Um, some guys' performances have been pretty good amongst the bad, team at times. The sellouts of the crowd, the stadium, that's insane from in my opinion. That
yeah.
the
Yeah.
Warriors have always been disrespected by rugby union. We've been the laughing stock. We've been the banter club for in New Zealand for the last 30 years, and now it's finally just getting some respect. So there's a lot of positives. Like I'm looking forward to the restaurant when it gets opened up in Kingsland. I'm waiting for
Oh
that
yeah.
announcement to come because I want to go up and have a feed. But
Oh
there's
yeah.
a lot of good, like the development. A lot of people that have been following the development, the Harold Mats, all of these good things are happening underneath that are showing signs of like in 2-3 years time, we potentially could be a powerhouse. So there's a lot of that type of stuff happening underneath, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the positive I could take is, of course, is the fact that we can look at our next couple of years. We've got a system in place, like a pathway system in place, because we haven't been able to talk about that in a while. Since when pathways and having those teams like the New South Wales Cup, the Harold Maths, the Jersey Flag. Of course, we got the New South Wales Cup in the first graders. So we've got a couple of teams there, and then that's really awesome. I think there's a positive direction going for the club in those regards as well. But also it's the NRLW side next year, which is coming into the comp, which I'm really excited for. Really looking forward to.
Yeah, that
You know,
too. Yeah, massive. Yep,
really looking forward to
absolutely.
that as well. Yeah, and Jose's just saying here, I still give Capewell and Archie a good grade for the season overall, B plus for both. I say Capewell has had some good moments on the edges when he found himself there. Well, I like him there, so that's what he reckons on Capewell
Yep.
there. So yeah, it's just going through another comment. So Jack is also saying here that Jazz and Nathan Brown
Yeah,
to train
Punter
together
was breaking.
should be fun. Yeah.
Punter was shout out Punter if that's true. Punter was in my chat the
Yep.
other night saying that
Oh yeah, yeah.
Jazz to the Seagulls
Yep.
on a 2-year deal. You might be right there, Punter. Um, yeah, what do you think of that? Fanatics, Jazz to the Seagulls. If that's legit from Punter.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it'd be a good. I think it'd be a good signing. I think any team that can get Jazz in there. He puts the heart on the sleeve. He plays for the jersey. I think it'd be I think it'd be a pretty good signing for the Seagulls. My question is, where would you play him? Like, is he going to be like one of those players off the bench? Um,
Mm.
he's played a few positions before, but yeah, I think it'd be a good solid signing for the Seagulls.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. I mean, me
Mm,
and Ash talked about it on Tuesday. We
yep,
thought he might go to the Cowboys with Todd Payton. Um, but hey, I like I said for Jazz, I think he served the club the best he possibly could have. We are going in a new direction with the younger players. But I'd be happy for him to end up anywhere. He's got a young family. I want him to probably get the best contract he can. To keep enjoying his footy career. It's not over. He's still, in good age, and so
yeah.
hopefully he goes well. Yeah.
Yeah, is there anything you like, anything else you'd like to cover on? Because I think have a look at, I want to have a look at the players departing at the end of the year. So is
Yep.
there anything else you'd like to, maybe mention, maybe something in regards to recruitment? Because you did say you wanted to mention
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
had some good chats on Twitter lately
Yep.
about recruitment. I suppose the talk around Aaron Clark, and actually I like Aaron Clark if he did come back. I think he'd
Yep.
be a good addition. I think he offers like People are saying he's a straight swap for Jazz. I don't see it as a straight swap for Jazz. I think he
Mm.
provides a bit more ball playing options. Um, he's a little bit younger. I think he's around 26 at the moment. I think he's if the money's right. I mean, for me, it's no more than 500K for someone like Aaron. And I imagine there'll be some money freed up with Jazz and SJ going AFB. So um, and that's my opinion. But I'm worried, like the sense from a recruitment strategy.
Yep.
Um, the storyline was that his mum was coming back to coach netball, so I
Oh yeah.
suppose he's coming back as well. And I'm only saying my argument as to are we just kind of relying on guys wanting to come back home as a recruitment strategy, or should we be more active in terms of actually trying to actively recruit? I mean, similar example, JFH, he wanted to come home and teach his kids the culture, and so that again fell into our lap. RTS, his time in rugby was done. Um, you know, oh, can you guys take me in? The same, so CHT had retired. Oh, the Warriors are looking good. Hey, can I come back? I mean, it's still good recruitment, like, but I'm just saying, like, um, I think we could be. I'm wondering if we can be a little bit sharper or a little bit more proactive in terms of um, our recruitment strategy. Not saying that these
Yeah.
guys aren't good. I'm just trying to think. You know, it's I suppose it's difficult for us to get guys over. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, you look at I mean, Bulldogs is polar opposite to us in terms of they're always actively looking for someone, and but I think they are like recruiting smart. Like I said, they recruited Curran that met a need that works for them. They've built that like what Gus has done over 2 years to actually redo the whole squad.
Mm.
Um, is amazing. But I had a good chat, and my man Levon as well. He was saying like the club is actually moving into not signing Aussie players as much now, and we're going to start going into the development pathways, which is actually a fair point that we're not going to target Aussies as much as we probably have. And so I can understand that too, like going the development way. And so we're probably only going to get Kiwi guys that want to come home. Um, so that's cool, but I'm just thinking we should still try and look for the Jackson Fords, the guys that
Yep.
I suppose, that were revelations that no one else saw. We should still be trying to get, little ones here and there to bolster the team. But it's just a thought for our recruitment strategy. If we're going to wait for people to sit in our lap, if the team's not going too well, then what are we not might not be getting people coming home. But I suppose if the team is doing really well, then people are like, hey, can I come home and get a signing? But it's just a thought to chuck out there.
Yep.
I'm not saying either any way is right. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And just saying, Jacko just put his comment here. Unless we pay overs, doesn't end well. Very hard to recruit top players to come over the ditch, and that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Like we always find it hard as as a club to recruit players, to attract those players to come over to New Zealand to play for the Warriors. It's been over the years. That's sort of it's been an issue over the years. And Tahi bro, hello to Tahi bro in the chat. Good to see you. Saying yeah, it's good just bringing through a hardened Warrior from time to time. And yeah, that's the thing I'm thinking of the recruitment next year is do the Warriors look at getting another prop? Because I know they've got Fisher Harris coming, but do you think they might look at another prop moving forward, or maybe another outside back or a half? Because I know we've
Yeah. I,
got yeah,
yeah. I think people are talking about halves. Like,
yeah,
I know Jacko's one. He wants to get in a half, an Aussie half. So, like I say, it can't be just purely from development right now.
mm,
You still got to be smart. But I'm just saying that. But I agree with what Mez is saying. Like, if you do sign Aussies, there's always a risk they'll leave
mm,
early, and so that we
yeah,
start
absolutely,
becoming compassionate grounds. we've become the compassionate
Yeah.
grounds team.
So,
The one NZ compassionate grounds. I've seen that one before.
oh,
So
yeah.
you got to be smart. You do, and that's what I'm saying. Like, um, if we stick to this recruitment strategy of just bringing guys that wanted Kiwi boys, usually develop from ourselves, we are a little bit short in some areas. I'm
Mm,
okay with that, but I just think everyone needs to understand that um, if we're moving more into a development phase team, we're still a little bit away from continually competing. But it doesn't mean that we can't be successful. Yeah,
yeah, Jose has made an interesting comment here that the players that we've signed do they do want to come home have been great. It could work, but yes, sparkle what sprinkle Aussie greats throughout. Yeah, so yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. There's got
Like it's just little ones, eh? It's like Jackson Ford. No one knew who he was, and I
yeah,
know people have, probably this year hasn't been his best year, but for at least for 1 year, he was really good, you know. Um, and that's the only one I'm saying. When you pick one of these Aussie guys, make sure it's the right one. Uh, yeah,
yeah, exactly. And Jazz is also just saying some of our Aussies have been solid and have been great choices. Some of them absolutely love New Zealand, the culture and the people
yep,
and the sights and scenes. Yeah, Steve Price, yeah, that's a pure example. Yeah, absolutely. And Steve Price has talked very highly about his time at the Warriors over the years. So yeah,
yeah,
one of the greats as well. So
yep,
but yeah, just some of these the players that are playing their last couple of games. I just want to give you your quick thoughts on that because obviously with 2 games left, you've got Jazz playing his last home game this week, and of course SJ retiring as well, and quite a few players leaving. What are your thoughts? Just what are your thoughts on SJ as well? Just his career, because I know he retired. The announcement was a couple of weeks ago, but just want to give you like initial reaction on his
Y-
career and one of your favourite memories of SJ because he's an absolute legend. I think one of the Warriors' greatest players of all time, in my opinion. He's
yep.
he's up there with Simon Mannering. Your Stacey Jones. He's one of the greats. What are your thoughts on Sean Johnson? His career
Oh,
in general.
Sean. Yeah, definitely one of our greats of all time. I think he's got most points. Um, one of the best halves. Um, and for a club that, especially in his era, only had one um, really good season. That was
Mm,
2011, where we got really lucky, but we rode the wave that took us to the grand final. And one of the big moments was his last minute play, his clutch play to get Lewis Brown over the line. Turning Proctor inside, that was always magical. Um, and then pretty much after Cleary left, the club went
yeah.
into just a run of 10 years. It was just, as fans, we just absolutely struggled, to through that era. Um, and he, was the face of the club along with Mannering. But then I suppose when Mannering retired, for a moment there, he was the face, and he didn't always have the best players around him. A lot was asked of Sean to create, you know, for us, and he was amazing at it. You think of individual games where he was able to turn a game around, um, especially his, just his early career, his speed, footwork, his top end speed. I always said was amazing. And then unfortunately, the injury that got him was just a big turning point in terms of what he was capable of doing. You didn't see that same Sean over the years kind of go into the line as much as he used to. So, I but at the same time, he tried his best to help the club through a bad time, and then to see him go away to the Sharks, that whole situation um, was tough, and be interested. I might talk to the ET boys next week. Be interested to see what their view of his Sharks tenure was.
Yeah.
Um, but then to come back and play that tough year at COVID 2022. But then to 2023 to finally be in a system that supported him, a coach that got him working, a team that was well balanced, and to see him pretty much get a Dally M, medal in my opinion,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
was was something to witness. The way he was orchestrating things that 2023 season, it was magic. Like Sean was just on fire the whole season. He was calling everything, executing everything. Everything was to a T. Um, there were just games where he just took over. Remember the Bulldogs game? It was a tight game, and then he went through to score, I think, and we won the game at home. Magical moments, the kick against the Sharks, all of, and throughout his career, but specifically last year, was just absolutely amazing. Um, so Sean, he will be one of the greatest, of all time at the Warriors. Um, I just think it was a guy that he could have had an amazing career, but the club, literally the year after they made a grand final, just went into a dark, dark place, in my opinion. But then again, his Kiwis career. You look specifically 2013 semi final in the clutch. That was a beautiful moment for all those that were watching it early in the morning. It was insane, to see them get through the final. That was a big, big moment to beat England. And then 2014 was probably his best year on the international stage, where he just had the team was stacked and finally had a forward pack that knew how to, dominate, and he just dominated off of it. And specifically the Wellington final, where he just took over, burnt GI on the outside. It was just in the Kiwis jersey. It was great to see him perform to that level and have the talent around him to support him. So I can't speak highly enough of Sean and his career. I know everyone in the chat will have their moments too, but um, a once in a lifetime, yeah, definitely once in a lifetime talent. You probably never see a Sean Johnson again, similar to a Benji Marshall. You
yeah,
never see the like of him. And congratulations to Benji on the Hall of Fame. Um, you know, you, you never see another those two types of players again. And I know we're looking for the next generation. We'll have to wait and see, but I doubt that they'll be of that style of Sean Johnson. He's a one of one, in my opinion, and that's all I can say about him. And wishing him the best for the future.
yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah. Well said, yeah, well said there. It's great, great thoughts, and I echo just similar words there. That his career, it's been a great NRL career, and he's been probably one of the role models in the game, outside the NRL and on the field as well, and obviously a lot of kids look up to him. He's obviously had his ups and highs and lows throughout his career. Of course, coming from the Warriors, making his debut in 2011. Then you know he left to go to the Sharks, and I thought when he left to go to the Sharks, I thought it was just not right. It was so different, very different. But when he went there, he did all right. But I felt like his best years were at the Warriors. He came back last year. It was a career defining year for him last year. And he came real close to the Dally M, and he still should have won it in my opinion. I thought he should have won it, but
yep.
this year's probably not been the year that he probably would have wanted.
No.
But he has nothing else to prove. He's nothing else to prove. I think he's had a great career, and I'll just wish nothing but the best for SJ in his future. And I think maybe there's a role outside the club. Maybe in a coaching
Yep.
capacity, or maybe helping some of the junior players. The pathway players, and I don't know. What do you reckon? Because I think I know he started up a podcast here. Do you think
Um,
maybe in the
I'd
future we'll
like,
see him?
yeah, I'd like SJ specifically to work at the probably ages 10 to 12 range, 10 to 15. Um, I personally like to see him work with really young halves.
Yeah,
Um, to bring up the next generation. I think it's actually better if he goes down to even the ARL, go amongst those clubs or work in schools, maybe high schools or even intermediates to try and help young developing halves from a very young age. I mean, if you look at the Aussie system and how they develop players, it starts, from a very young age coming through. So I personally, I mean, I'd love SJ at the club, work with all of our players. I'm sure he'd have time for that. But I'd also like him to go down to, you know, that younger age
Mm.
and bring that generation up, because then that's when you start to see the development of habits, the development of your mental game. And for a long time, the New Zealand Rugby League game has been about physicality, bumping people off, big hits. If you look at all of our domestic comps, it's still very much big hits, one out hit ups. But if you look, across the country, we don't have technical kickers. We don't have technical, ball players at that young level. So I actually prefer if Sean could build a Sean Johnson Academy, let's say, where he works with the 10 or 20 best halves that in the age group of a 10 to 12 and bring that generation up, because then you'd start to really take it to a new level. But that's just another thought. Yeah.
Yep. And Jose's just saying, I was just talking to James Gavett at the gym a couple of weeks ago,
Oh,
just talking
yeah,
about
yeah,
Sean Johnson and saying that he's the last of the generation to leave, which is a great chat. So that's what he's
yeah,
saying
yeah.
there.
Yeah, it's true. Yep. You're pumping
And
with James, eh? Yeah, Jose, you're pumping the big weights.
yeah, Jose, sure, I had a soft spot for James Gavett as well. Is he still playing footy? Yeah, I'm not too sure about that one. If he is still playing footy. And Jose is also saying I didn't ask if he's still playing. Still looks mean, but I guess he's still playing. Means he's got a mean rig still. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
man.
is it like any other words you want to say, like maybe about Jazz and Fanua
Yep.
Blake, and because the two other players that I think have obviously done very well at the club, especially AFB. We know last year he had a great season, and obviously he's off to the Sharks. It's a big blow for us. He's
Yep.
going to be a big loss for us, no doubt about it. What he brings to the table each week on the field with his meters, and he brings a lot to the table. Anything you like to say, like regards to AFB and Jazz? Jazz has been around throughout his whole career, right? Jazz has been there since the under 20s days. He's been through a lot at the club, so a bit sad
Yep.
about Jazz. I'm very emotionally you know, feel sad about it because Jazz has been for the Warriors throughout a number of years, but obviously he's decided to move on. The club's decided to move on. So yeah, anything you'd like to say about Jazz and Fanua Blake?
I've really grown to enjoy Jazz.
Yeah.
Jazz has been a player that wears his heart on his sleeve.
Mm.
Um, he has never not given the best he could possibly on the field, and sometimes the best he gave wasn't good enough at times. The errors and penalties, but you
Yeah.
saw a change, Jazz, particularly under Webster. But also, you saw that he really made an effort to tidy up his game and his production. I thought his production specifically this year is good, and like if Manly are going to sign him, Manly as a club that doesn't just pick up anyone. We know they're a history, a top club. So if that comes true, what Punter was saying, then they see value in him and using him to good effect for them. So, but he's grown on me. I've really enjoyed. Big up to the Warriors Life podcast. That was a great interview of Jazz. He says it how
Yeah.
it is. He doesn't mince his words. And that's why when you hear Jazz speak, it's actually really refreshing for someone to be so open. And so, yeah, for me, I'm looking forward to his future. He's been a stalwart of the club, even in the dark times. Like I said, the club's been in such a dark phase, especially with COVID. It got even worse. Um, to eventually get to where we are in 2023. Um, and although 2018 was a good year, but
Yeah.
you really tied that all in until post COVID, and the fact that he's kept turning up and being professional, and I just wish him all the best. I really do wish him all the best. Like I said at the start, he's got a young family. Your years as a player are limited. We're looking at Sean Johnson retiring. So for me, Jazz, just make the most of every opportunity you get, the best contract, extend your career as long as you possibly can. But it will always be in the Warriors. He'll be a fan favorite for a lot. He'll be considered a Warriors, stalwart, a classic Warrior. So yeah, hope he goes well. In my opinion, AFB, yeah, he as much as AFB, I suppose, didn't finish out his contract. I mean, if he'd finished out his contract and left on good terms, it might have been a different story. But even despite that, he's probably been one of the best props we've had at the club. His performance levels never dipped, in my opinion. Although at times he's looked as though disinterested or had maybe off-field issues that are coming presenting themselves on the field. But from a talent, what an absolute talent he is, and we will miss him. I mean, I'll miss seeing him on the field and the way he plays, his athleticism. Him as a player was absolutely, um, like I said, Adam could probably play on the wing. That's probably a stretch, but he's that talented and like ball playing, all the little intricate details, his mindset, how he sees footy. He's a smart guy. So I wish him all the best. Not too much at the Sharkies, but
Yeah.
yeah, he'll go down as one of our best. Maybe not a Warriors faithful, or but people reflect on the talent that's come through the club, and he will be regarded as one of the best in terms of talents, at least in the forwards as well. To have played for the club. Yep.
Yeah, well said there. And yeah, look, I want to just say to Jazz, we'll like to wish him all the best. He's a really nice bloke. I've met
Yep.
him a few times, and he always asked me a question at the Titans game. How's your page going? Because he knows I run a Warriors page, and I tell him all about it. And it's good. He's a really nice bloke, man. He's
Yeah, he
really
is.
humble, nice bloke. To chat to, and I've got a photo of him a couple of times as well. And he is probably a player that you want to play for, right, Jazz?
Yep.
He always puts that jersey on with pride. He doesn't, despite what people say, whether he makes an error or penalty or gives away a penalty and that, but despite that, he always puts the jersey on his sleeve, Jazz. He's very
Yep.
passionate. He's a great player, and I wish nothing but the best. I wish him all the best, for the future, wherever
Yep.
he goes next, whether it be Manly or whatever club he goes to. I just wish him very well. And of course, SJ, look, SJ, I've said what I could say, but SJ is he's a legend of the club, and I wish him all the best as well. And what a career he's had. And for Noah Blake, of course, look, for Noah Blake, it would be nice if he could see out his contract, but he's still been a great player for us. You've got to remember he's still been a great player for us. So I wish nothing but the best, but not too much, not too much best when he comes up against us next year, which is going to be a nightmare. Try and tackle for Noah Blake instead of having him on your side. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No,
that's
I
all I can say
agree.
about that one. But anyways, yeah, I think it'll be wrap it up here, guys. I think we've gone through and said what we need to say. Just a quick one, a prediction for this week's game, and how do you think the boys are going to go? And what do you reckon? Who do you reckon at the moment? Is going to be in that grand final, in the grand final, in a couple months' time? What do you reckon?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I think for the Bulldogs game, you obviously want to
Yeah.
see SJ go out on a high. But then again, you got to play and look at the team and how it's performed this year. It hasn't quite lived up, but you maybe what they
Mm,
can pull one out. You hope they would, and you hope SJ finds a magical spark to get the boys home. But I think if we do play, it'll be a low scoring game. I think we should be able to battle it out with the Bulldogs. But in my opinion, it'd probably be 18-16 to us if we win. But I can see them just pipping us, to be honest. But you know, either way, I'm going to be at the game, so I'm just looking forward to going and just seeing Sean play. his last one, seeing Jazz and AFB, and just to join into the with the crowd and community. It's great. I know you went to Mount Smarte at the start of this year for one of the
Yeah,
games.
yeah, I did. Yeah,
Um, yeah, and the vibe there at Mount Smart, it's awesome. And so I'll probably just be roaming around, saying hi to people, or just chilling out. I'll try and get in there early for the Cup boys, and then so it's just at the end of the day, if the boys lose, it's like doesn't change much, but you want to see SJ go out on top. So I think if it's a close one, if we win, it's going to be 18-16. Grand final, you still think Panthers, but Melbourne's showing a lot of good things that they are legit. Um, Seems like the Bulldogs. I think the Bulldogs will, I suppose, get found out at some point, but their attack can be unpredictable. I think they've found some good form in attack, and maybe that might be helpful for them in the finals. You never know. Sharks, I think, are pretenders ultimately. Roosters, yes, an outside chance, but you're probably going to say Panthers and Melbourne in the final for me. They just look too, I suppose, dominant at this point in time. But yeah, that's who I've got.
yeah, yeah. No, I think it's between the three teams at the moment. It's Penrith, Melbourne, and the Roosters. I think those other teams below them, I just don't think they'll win it this year. And I think the grand finals, well, for me at the moment, it's probably Penrith, Melbourne. Exact.
Yeah,
And a lot of people saying that, and it is a bit of a boring answer. But right now, if you're looking at the first two, the top two sides in the comp, it's between those two, and I think the Roosters maybe can give it a shake, but I think other than that, I think
yeah. Roosters maybe. Yeah,
that's pretty much it. Roosters, for Penrith, Storm, and I think an underdog side, maybe the Dogs are smoky in the finals, but
yeah.
that's
Dogs
pretty much
smoky.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Same here.
Yeah, but I think that is it. That wraps it up, guys. It's been a joy. It's been great to have Levon on from WAHS Up TV. Thanks for coming on, bro. I really appreciate it, and yeah, hopefully, well, fingers crossed that we can get a win and send SJR on a high,
Yeah,
this Friday night.
yeah, man. No, thanks for having me. It's great to see. Like I said, the guys in the chat, Jose, Jacko, and Webby, Nas, Tahi. They're all supporters of Wiles Up TV as well. And great to see them showing love here at Warriors NRL Fanatics. Appreciate you as always, man. I know we don't get much time as we're busy either making content or in our own lives, but it's great to be on here. And everyone give a subscribe, please, and a like for the work that Fanatics does. Before you leave, always keep those numbers up. They help with the content and the population of our stuff. So, no, man, I'm good, man, and hopefully we can do something, next year, and continue to grow the community. But thanks, man. Thanks for having me, and appreciate the time you give me to talk. Yeah,
Awesome. Thanks again. And just want to pop in and say thanks to all the viewers for tuning in. We had Naz join, we had pre-game, Fallon, Jacko, Hosea, everyone, Tahi, bro. We've got Naz, everyone in the chat there. Big shout out to you guys, into Webby as well. It's been awesome having you guys tune in and watching, and yeah, look, go and check out, go and subscribe to Wise Up TV. They're doing a great job there with all their content, so go and check them out. Please like this live stream if you haven't done so already. Click that thumbs up button on the live stream. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel also as well. It always is much appreciated, guys. It helps boost the channel and the numbers as well. So yeah, really appreciate you coming on, Wise Up. Really do
no problem, man.
appreciate all the viewers for tuning in. Have a good rest of the week, everyone. Have a good weekend. Up the
Yep.
wires Friday night. Hopefully, we can
Up
send
the
out
wires,
SJ off on a high, get a win. And yeah, have
SJ
a good
Stadium.
one. Enjoy your weekend coming up. Go the
Yep.
Warriors. Up the wires.
Up the wires. See you, people.
See ya.